And so when I say Chinese, I want you to scream out the nation that's associated with this. For example, if I say Chinese, you're going to say what?
China.
All right, let's say it with authority. When I say Chinese, you say what? China. All right, that's just a test right there. So here we go. Chinese.
China.
Russian.
Russia.
Italian.
Italy.
German.
Germany.
Swedish.
Sweden.
Korean.
Korea.
Egyptian.
Egypt.
Nigerian.
Nigeria.
Black.
Exactly. Nothing. Tell him, Pastor. Tell him, Pastor. Black, nothing. Yes.
I hope you were able to successfully identify the issue. Want to say peace and blessings, family. Trying to get this live, oh, excuse me, this PowerPoint up. Let me get it up here real quick. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Let's see here. All right, here we go. That's not what I'm looking for. All right, let's try this again. All right, bear with me 1 second. We're going to get started here. All right, let me just close out a couple of other things here and we will get started. So, all right, let me try this again. Let me try sharing this PowerPoint and then we'll get started. All right, where are we? All right, here we go. Okay. All right. Want to say peace and blessings, family. If you can hear me, type 1. If you're having issues with hearing my audio, type 2. So again, if you can hear me, click 1 or type 1 inside the chat. If you're having any issues with my audio, type 2 and I will try to make some adjustments. All right. All right. So we're going to get started here in a second. Let me make sure I got everything set up for you guys. Okay. All right. If you guys can hear me clearly, type 1. All right. Good. Good. Okay. Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and do our acknowledgments. You know, you guys know how I do. I like to acknowledge and say hello to everyone that's been supporting and really appreciate you guys for the love and support. I know that this past week and a half, 2 weeks, I kind of gotten away from, um, kind of gotten out of sync with my playbooks, but had to deal with some pressing matters. But nevertheless, we're going to get back on track, and this is some of the things we're going to continue to teach. Got some videos I'm going to upload, some lectures to upload to also give you proper clarity on some of the things that we're going to deal with in the near future. All right. So again, I want to start off by giving our shout outs here. I want to say peace and blessings to Truth Hurts. I want to say salama to you. I want to say peace and blessings to Sister Candace, Devora Cotton, Aerospike Shalom to you. Nadia, um, or Nadia, salama to you. Miss B, want to say peace and blessings to you. My sister, Sister Carol, want to say shalom to you. Appreciate the support. Divine Righteous, want to say shalom to you. Let's see here. Who else do we have here? Susan, want to say shalom to you. My buddy Larry Bryce, this is my Ak right here. Peace and blessings to you, my brother. Divine Righteous, want to say peace and blessings to you. All right. Exactly. That's why we're doing. I'm dealing with the discussions that many don't want to deal with. So you said here, and it's a great comment here. I never knew the meaning behind watch night, and we want to talk more about it. And what's interesting is when I was in Kojic, I was in Kojic for almost 10 years. I became a minister in Kojic, and I remember teaching on watch night during one of the watch night services, and many did not want to receive what I shared because it can be hard, to understand and hard to grasp when you start getting to the meat and potatoes of it. So it wasn't a disrespectful message, but just gave proper clarity that watch night, the origins of watch night. So we're going to deal with that today. So appreciate you for tuning in, and I will give you proper clarity on it today. All right. So who else do we have here? I want to say peace and blessings, salama to Corinth. Oh, Corinth, I believe it's Corinth or Corice. Excuse me. Um, Forgive me if I mispronounced your name. So I want to say salama to you, sister. I want to say to my cousin, salama to you. Um, who else do we have here? Let's see. H Scott or HS Scott, 63 DK. Sister Melinda, appreciate your support, appreciate your prayers. Stephanie McMillan, peace and blessings to you. Salama to you. To my brother Antonio Wells, appreciate you. Want to say shalom to you, and really appreciate you. You're bringing out the crane style. Okay, I remember the old karate movies. The Kid with the Golden Arms. That was one of my favorite movies. The Kid with the Golden Arms, and also the Five Deadly Venoms. I believe that's the name of the movie, but it was a few of them that I really enjoyed. So I may have to bring some of those clips as some of the humor that you guys know I like to inject in some of these teachings. So yeah. When you said crane style, yeah, that's making me think about some of the old kung fu theater movies I used to watch. So peace and blessings to you, brother. Appreciate you for tuning in. I want to say shalom to Renee. I want to also say shalom to Sister Lynn, shalom to Sister Ashley. Who else do we have here? Plumontis. Want to say shalom to you. Angie Love, Lon Harv. Want to say shalom to you guys. Who else do we have here? Uh, Ya Kani. Want to say shalom. Salama, Shalawam, Simi or Semai family. And hey, that's what it's about. Just acknowledging people and the salutations or the greetings that they choose, and that's what I do here. I don't make a big deal out of whether some receive shalom or salama or shalom, whatever it is. It's not a deal breaker. All right. So appreciate you for tuning in, sis. Joe Nuff, appreciate you. Want to say shalom to you, Israelite wife. Want to say shalom, beloved of the Most High, Darnell, set apart. Want to say shalom to you. Appreciate you, Ama. Some would say Ima, but I appreciate you for tuning in to the presentation here. My brother Keith Williams, I appreciate you for tuning in. Who else do we have? Just Reese, my sister Ashonda at large. Uh, Powerful sister, guys. Powerful sister. If you haven't subscribed to her channel, subscribe to her. All right. Sister Shalon, my sister that's been rolling with me for quite a long time. Let me see here. All right. Turn your volume up. Okay. I turn it up some. All right. Now I may have to speak a little louder. Let me make sure the mic is to my mouth here. All right. Okay. So turned it up. Okay. Peace and blessings to you. Joe's daughter, Marmon. Who else do we have here? Will Love, Inspired Identity, Shauna Leonard, Marmon, Carl, Carlide. All right. Who else do we have here? Got quite a few. All right. I hope I got everyone. Let me just put some more up here. I hope I had called out your names. If I did not call your name out, please do not take offense. It's just quite a few names that are popping up here, and it's hard to get to everyone. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. And again, really appreciate your love and your support. Continue to support the platforms of our brothers and sisters. Support the platforms of Dante, Forston, Sister E, Ashonda, Teo Ministries. Um, just really be very supportive. Boom Ministries, as well as some of the other brothers and sisters that are really putting in the work to make sure that our brothers and sisters are waking up and also be that barrier. We're on that front line trying to make sure that our people, those are coming to this understanding of who they are, excuse me, uh, really don't have to be sidetracked or distracted by a lot of the attacks that are out here. So again, people appreciate all my brothers and sisters that are putting in that work, and you guys for standing strong and keeping our arms lifted up. So really appreciate you. Let's see here, brother Kelly. Please remember, I am okay. Hey, you know what? We all are trying to find our way home, and the word of the Most High is our compass. The Holy Spirit is leading us, and really appreciate you. And so many don't truly don't want us to find our way home. Many of them want to have us completely stay in this lost state. And as I taught, and I'm going to upload the message that I gave yesterday at our Shabbat service to really give proper clarity of the difference between being lost and falling away. And real quick, as we get ready to get started, being lost, and I explained Second Thessalonians chapter 2, the difference between being lost and being and falling away. Lost is when you just don't know. You have no clue about what's what, and being someone that's fallen away, that's someone who is rejecting the truth, right? So you cannot have a falling away without the great awakening. So in order for someone to fall away, they have to at least had the opportunity to receive the truth, and they rejected it. So when we say someone is lost, like the Hebrews, like Messiah said, he said he come to what, bring salvation to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That means that there's so many of our brothers and sisters are blind. We are the hidden ones that the 83rd book of Psalms talks about. And there is a crafty council that came together to remove the reputation. The Hebrew word for reputation, the Hebrew word for fame, the Hebrew word for character, and it's the Hebrew word sham. And the Israeli pronunciation is shem. So they came together, this crafty council, to completely erase the literal name of Israel, Yashara'al, the literal name, as well as the reputation that is attached to Yah's original people, right? The hidden one. So that's why we're going through these presentations. That's why we're going through these lessons. And don't be discouraged by the attacks that you see. All right. So we're going to get proper clarity today about New Year's, and we're going to talk about it. And prayerfully, you guys, this presentation will answer those questions. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and get started. And if you guys have any issues, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask, feel free to post, and I'll get to them as much as I can. And also for all the moderators, because we know that there's a lot of trolls out there, uh, block them. Don't even put them in timeout. Just block them, because we have a lot of pressing matters, things that we have to address. Address. So block them. Don't even entertain it. Anyone that's in here that's being a distraction, just block them because we don't have time for it. And again, support our brothers and sisters that are out here putting in that work, that's really trying to represent the community. There's so many out there that I can mention, like Hebrew Nation, Benaiah Israel, tune into his channel. Also, Divine Prospect, Ron Shields, just really support our brothers and sisters that are out there. Issachar, they're doing so much out there. Watchmen and Deborah, they're doing so much out there to try to help our people wake up and free ourselves from these systems. So again, support our brothers and sisters, Dante Forston, Teo Ministries, Sister E, uh, Ashonda, as well as Boom, and some of the other ministries that are out there. All right. So let's go ahead and get started here, family. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. All right. So, curse of having no power. This is part two. You guys saw part one, but I'm going to, in this presentation, we're going to go a little deeper than what I did, a lot deeper. All right. So, we're going to tie this into watch night. So, before we get started here, well, get into the meat and potatoes, I really want to bring out some facts here. December 31st is not the original New Year's Eve. I'll say that again. December 31st is not the original New Year's Eve. All right. One more time for those that may not understand, right? The December 31st is not the original New Year's Eve.
What?
All right, so let's delve into that a little bit, and then we'll get into watch night. And we're gonna really debunk so much tonight. We're gonna debunk the Irish slave narrative. We're gonna do so much this afternoon. All right, so let's delve into this. So the original New Year's Eve was actually called Fat Tuesday. All right, the original New Year's Eve was actually called Fat Tuesday. So Fat Tuesday is connected to Ash Wednesday. And we'll deal with Ash Wednesday in the upcoming months to give you proper clarity of what's Ash Wednesday. All right. So Fat Tuesday is connected to Ash Wednesday. And truth be told, Ash Wednesday is also connected to Palm Sunday. All right. Again, we'll deal with that in the upcoming presentation. So let's deal with Ash Wednesday a little bit. So Ash Wednesday, this allegedly Christian festival was taken from Roman paganism. Let me say that again. You see this all inside the church, Christianity, Catholicism. You see paganism all embedded with many of the major events within the church, right? And I'll say Christendom or Catholicism they are still under the same umbrella. So this allegedly Christian festival was taken from Roman paganism, which in turn took it from Vedic India. Ashes were called the seed of the fire god Agni, with power to absolve all sin. Even if a man does 1,000 things that one ought not to do, by bathing in ashes, he will cause all of that to be burnt to ashes as fire burns a forest with its energy. Another source said ashes stood for the purifying blood of Shiva or Shiva, in which one could bathe away sins as Christians bathe in the blood of the Lamb. So at Rome's New Year Feast of Atonement in March, people wore sackcloth and bathed in ashes to atone for their sins. Then, as now, New Year's Eve was a carnival of eating, drinking, and sinning, on the theory that all sins would be wiped out the following day. Now, doesn't it sound familiar? Even though December 31st is not the original New Year's Eve, January 1st is not the original New Year's, but you still see the same behaviors. Think about some of the things that you see taking place, some of the behaviors. We all been young, and some of the things that many indulged in, far as New Year's Eve, was going out drinking, partying, fornicating, all those different things. That is no coincidence because that's the behavior of the original watch night. All right. So I want to give clarity and give you clarity on the behaviors that you see taking place on watch night or New Year's Eve, rather, excuse me, not watch night, but New Year's Eve. That's the original behavior of New Year's Eve. It comes from Roman, the Greeks. All right. Ultimately, we see how it ties into India, Hinduism. All right. But again, then as now, New Year's Eve was a carnival of eating, drinking, and sinning on the theory that all sins would be wiped out the following day. As the dying god of March, Mars took his worshippers' sins with him to death. All right, let me read that again. As the dying god March, in other words, Mars, took his worshippers' sins with him into death. Therefore, the carnival fell on Dies Martis, in other words, the day of Mars. In English, this was Tuesday because Mars was identified with the Saxon god T. In French, the carnival day was Mardi Gras, in other words, Fat Tuesday, the day of merrymaking before Ash Wednesday. Okay, so in French, the carnival day was Mardi Gras, in other words, Fat Tuesday, the day of merrymaking before Ash Wednesday. All right. So who is this Vedic god Agni? Let's touch on this god real quick and then we'll get into watch night. All right. So Agni, Vedic fire god wedded to Kali under her name Ambika, in other words, little mother. She represented the primal ocean of blood from which all things arose at creation. He represented the fructifying fire from heaven, in other words, lightning. Their combination meant vital heat. The Vedic sages said the soul of all the universe, moving and still, is made of a combination of blood and fire. Agni also appeared to consume sacrifices that were burned on their altars. He was a prototype of such Indo-European. When you say Indo-European or you see the term Indo-European, that's pretty much is saying the root. And also this is pointing to the descendants of Japheth. All right. He was a prototype for of such Indo-European fire bringers as Lucifer, Prometheus, Etana, Hephaestus, and Hercules. All right. So hope that helps you guys out there as we delve into this, but just wanted to give you a little bit, on the understanding of New Year's Eve. And we'll deal with this more in another month or so because we got to still deal with Purim and some of the other things. So we'll deal with that shortly. All right. So what is watch night? What is watch night? So let's go to the Merriam-Webster dictionary and let's see what it says. Let's see how they define watch night. It says here, a devotional service lasting until after midnight, especially on New Year's Eve. Right? Still doesn't give us a lot of information. So is watch night a December 31st devotional service? I just proved to you that it's not. The origins of it is not. But let's delve into it. Let's go to Huffington Post article about watch night. Let's see what they say. All right. And as you see here, the title of the article, Watch Night Service in the Black Church in America, 150 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. It says, Watch Night Service in the Black Church in America symbolizes the historical fact that on the night of December 31st, 1862, during the Civil War, free and freed blacks living in the Union States gathered at churches and or other safe spaces, while thousands of their enslaved blacks, sisters and brothers stood, knelt and prayed on plantations and other slave holding sites in America, waiting for President Abraham Lincoln to sign the Emancipation Proclamation into law. The Emancipation Proclamation legally recognized that the Civil War was fought for slavery. So let's go to the Encyclopedia Britannica. Let's see what they say about Watch Night. It says Watch Night, also called Freedom's Eve, Christian religious service held on New Year's Eve and associated in many African American churches with a celebration and remembrance of the Emancipation Proclamation. And as you see here, it says enacted January 1st, 1863. And we'll touch on this some more to give proper clarity as well, which freed slaves in the Confederate States during the American Civil War. Many mainline Protestant churches in the United States sponsor a watch night service on New Year's Eve. The tradition of watch night may be traced to the early 18th century in Moravian, churches, right? Excuse me for fumbling over the word. When churchgoers began marking the occasion with a vigil to reflect upon the years past and to contemplate the one to come. John Wesley adopted the practice for his Methodist followers who held similar vigils monthly with the full moon. All right. So was the Negro slaves truly waiting for President Lincoln to sign the Emancipation Proclamation into law? Right. We got to really understand this. Was our ancestors really waiting in anticipation for Abraham Lincoln to bring salvation to them? Because that's the way that it comes across. So when you understand even the term Negro, and I meant to put it inside this presentation, I forgot until I just thought about it. When you understand the term Negro in the United States, and you can look this up in South Carolina laws, you'll see this, the laws back in, I believe it was like the 18th century. It makes it clear the term Negro for those in the United States, that term Negro was synonymous to slave. So whenever you say Negro, right, in this country, you are identifying yourself as being slaves. It was interchangeable with the term black. It was also interchangeable with slaves. So that's why you have what is called the black codes or the Negro codes or the slave codes that they began to create starting in Barbados. Okay, so not trying to get into all of that, but just wanted to give you some clarity. So was the Negro slaves truly waiting for President Lincoln to sign the Emancipation Proclamation into law? Right? So let's go to history.com's quotes about the Emancipation Proclamation. Let's see what they say about this. All right. It says on September 22nd, soon after the Union victory at Antietam, he issued a preliminary Emancipation Proclamation declaring that as of January 1st, 1863, all slaves in the rebellious states shall be thenceforward and forever free, while the Emancipation Proclamation did not free a single slave. That's what we have to understand, right? It's the Emancipation Proclamation did not free a single slave. Let me read that part again, right? While the Emancipation Proclamation did not free a single slave. Let me read that one more time. I know that can be kind of hard to grasp, especially for those that are hearing this for the first time because of how history is given to us. While the Emancipation, right, Proclamation did not free a single slave.
What?
Right? It was an important, all right, I didn't put it all there. We're going to get back to it. All right. But I want to hone in on that again, right? Declaring that as of January 1st, 1863, all states in the rebellious states shall be thenceforward and forever free, while the Emancipation Proclamation did not free a single slave. All right. So let's deal with President Lincoln. What was Lincoln's true position on slavery? And you can look this up. That's why I don't have a problem with sharing my references. And that's why I share references, because we have many of our brothers and sisters that are 90% are Democrats. Give them this blank check, Democrats. But then we have brothers and sisters that give the Republican Party a blank check, because they'll default to saying, hey, the Republican Party freed the Negroes, freed the blacks, right? And when you understand the true agendas, it had nothing to do with us from the sense of trying to liberate us. I went a lot further than that. The Republican Party started from a group called the Whig Party, right? But then it evolved into the Republican Party, right? But let's see with Abraham Lincoln. Let's see his position on slavery. Let's see his position on our people. Let's see what he says, right? Let's going back to this article, right? Slavery was an unqualified evil to the Negro, the white man, and the state, said Abraham Lincoln in 1850s. Yet in his first inaugural address, Lincoln declared that he had no purpose. Let me say this again, had no purpose, directly or indirectly, to interfere with slavery in the United States where it exists. Let me say this again, guys. Let me say this again for those that truly don't understand the history, those that are making Abraham Lincoln into a type of savior for our people. Let me say this again. Let me read this here. This is not me making it up. You can look this up for yourself. That's why I show references, show my resources. Let me read it again. Slavery was an unqualified evil to the Negro, the white man, the white man and the state, said Abraham Lincoln in the 1850s. Yet in his first inaugural address, Lincoln declared that he had no purpose, directly or indirectly, to interfere with slavery in the United States where it exists. He reiterated this pledge in his first message to Congress on July 4th, 1861, when the Civil War was 3 months old. What explains this apparent inconsistency in Lincoln's statements? Let me read that again. Let's see that question. What explains this apparent inconsistency in Lincoln's statement? And how did he get from his pledge to, and how did he get from his pledge not to interfere with slavery to a decision a year later to issue an emancipation? So what was Lincoln's true thoughts about the Negroes? Let me ask that again. What was President Lincoln true thoughts about us, Negroes? That term slave, Negroes and slave, is interchangeable when you understand how the word is used in the United States, especially when you understand slavery. All right. So what was Lincoln's thoughts towards us? And you can look this up and confirm this. This is coming from Lincoln's speech, Charleston, Illinois, September 18th, 1858. This is what he said. I will say then that I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of the white and black races, that I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of making voters or jurors of who? The Negroes. Y'all see that right there? This is his own words. Again, look up the speech, Lincoln's speech, Charleston, Illinois, September 18th, 1858. So all of them, whether it's Democrats or Republicans, they're still the same bird. They still have their same agenda. This is their thoughts towards our people. And yet we look to these systems as a form of them being a messiah to our people. Many flocking out to support President Biden as if he's a savior to our people. And so many are going to be disappointed. All right. So again, I will say then that I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of the white and black races, that I am not, nor ever have been in favor of making voters or jurors of Negroes, nor of qualifying them to hold, nor of qualifying them hold office, nor to intermarry with white people. And I will say, in addition to this, that there is uh, a physical difference between the white and black races, which I believe will forever forbid the two races living together on terms of social and political equality. And in as much as they cannot so live, while they do remain together, there must be the position of now peep this out. There must be the position of superior and inferior. This still ties back into the institution of race. That's the actual purpose of this institution that was created, actually upgraded, because the original system comes from the caste system of the Romans, the Greeks. We could go all the way back to the Babylonians. But they want to create this position of superior and those who are inferior. That's what the institution of race is all about. I encourage you guys to look up Audrey Smetley. She is an anthropologist, and look up what she said about race in one of her journals. She made it clear that race is a folk idea, right? It's an invention that's based off of no scientific research or anything. All it is a system that promotes stereotypes. And it was literally put together to make sure that there is a separation, that there will always be a separation between, as you see here in Abraham Lincoln's own words, the position of superior, which is the Europeans, those who conquered our brothers and sisters and the Native Americans, the position of superior, them being the conquerors, and the Native Americans and our brothers and sisters as being inferior. That is a fact. So he says, the words of Abraham Lincoln, there must be the position of superior and inferior. And I was much as any of her man am in favor of having the superior position assigned to who? The white race. He always felt that whites or Caucasians or Europeans are what? The white race, superior to the Negroes. And this is where you have to really understand the Constitution, right? And we'll deal with that another time, but the Constitution was based off of these principles. All right. In the original Constitution, we were part of property, right? That's what we fell into the Fourth and Fifth Amendment as being what? Articles, rather, as being property. Right. And then you start getting into what? The natural laws. And the natural laws, according to this country and other countries, that we, the Negroes per se, were not viewed as humans. We were viewed as property. So that's why you see that they could not even get rid of slavery when you start understanding and researching Dred Scott. The Supreme Court made it clear that not a single politician had the power to remove slavery. So what they did was they came up with another system, another way to keep slavery in, a new criteria. And that was what? If you committed a crime, then you can go into slavery. And so that's why they began to change all the laws, and, so that way they can really, kind of like make up stuff, really make it hard for our people to function and live, step on every crack. They put cracks all around it. So, that way we, higher probability of what? Going right back into these systems, these jail systems that are based off of this. And we're going to deal with that. I'm going to deal with that. I'm going to show you the origins of the legal system. We'll go further with that. I'll do a part 2 to the slave catchers and show you the parallel. All right. So again, this is Lincoln's word. He said that there must be the position of superior and inferior. And he goes on to say, having the superior position assigned to the white race. All right. He goes on to say, our Republican system was meant for a homogeneous people. He declared, As long as the Negroes continue to live with the whites, they would constitute a threat to the national life. Family life might also collapse, and the increase of the mixed breed bastards might someday challenge the supremacy of the white man. All right. So I wanted to just give you a little information on, um, President Lincoln, because I know President Obama, the former president, used Lincoln's Bible to swear in on for his inauguration. Many Democrats use Lincoln's Bible to, when they are during their inauguration, when they've been officially installed as president. All right. So let's go further here. Let's deal with this some more. So were the enslaved Negroes waiting on Abraham Lincoln to bring them salvation? Were they? Were we waiting on him like he is a type of Christ? All right. Key thoughts about the Christopher Columbus era. All right. I want to touch on a couple of things here so that way you get proper clarity and tie all of this stuff in together. So I hope this blesses you guys so far. Just go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Let's make sure we get the likes, have at least 100 likes on this video before we conclude. All right. So key thoughts about the Christopher Columbus era. All right. Let's get some key points here. Christopher Columbus discovered absolutely nothing. Let me say that again. You guys already know this. Christopher Columbus discovered absolutely nothing. He had an encounter, but not a discovery. He was an adventurer, an opportunist, a willful murderer, a liar, a pedophile, and what he set in motion was the basis of Western capitalism. The exploitation of both Africans and indigenous Americans who had committed no crimes against Europe and did not know of the European intention to conquer and enslave them. Travelers from the great African empire of Mali in the 1300s reported that the king of Mali told them of two expeditions with hundreds of boats sent from Africa west into the great oceanist. Well, we could just say the ocean, but oceanist, Ethiopicus, right? Ethiopicus, excuse me. In other words, the Atlantic Ocean, which was called the Ethiopian Ocean. Some evidence suggests that there may have been periods of ancient trade from Brazil. There was physical evidence of a settlement dating back to the 10th century, the year 1000. A little piece of history: the Dufuna canoe is a 8,000-year-old canoe, right? Was discovered by Fulani herdsmen in Nigeria in 1987. It is the oldest boat to be discovered in Africa and one of the oldest known worldwide. So Christopher Columbus, he never set foot on North America, nor South America. He set in motion a concept called divine right and manifest destiny. Let me say this again, and this is why you see a lot of the behaviors within the church. They call this evangelism. They hide these behaviors under evangelism, right? Notice this here. He set in motion a concept called divine right and manifest destiny. All right. Now pay attention to this, meaning in the name of God, because they had ships and basic technology, they had the right to go into other people's countries and exploit their resources, take their women and rape them at will, use their babies as alligator bait. Maybe if he'd actually traveled to the Americas, he would have encountered a group of people in what is now called Loudoun County, right? Tennessee, which is the Back Creek, where you get the Back Creek Stone from. And I'm going to share some information about the Back Creek Stone to completely knock down a lot of the foolishness that I saw out there trying to discredit it. I have primary source that completely obliterates when many try to had tried to say that these were fakes, these are forged, stones. I got a key piece of information that completely obliterates that concept, obliterates those thoughts, obliterates those talking points. So the Bakri stone, who wrote in a language that is of the ancient Hebrew vernacular. The Christopher Columbus era is what set in motion the following thoughts about Africans and indigenous Americans. The myth of a people waiting in darkness for another people to bring them light. Think about this. Let me say this again. The myth of a people waiting in darkness for another people to bring them light. This is the spirit that we see that's operating when we start understanding evangelism. Right? Christopher Columbus were the ones that they accidentally bumped into the shores of Central America, the Puerto Rico, and they accidentally stumbled across there. They came across a group of people that helped them while they were living on a ship with lice and all kinds of stuff. These people not even knowing that these guys already had a scheme to come take was that things that never belonged to them. So the myth of a people waiting in darkness for another people to bring them light. See, this is how we really have to change the way that we understand evangelism. See, we think that we've been taught evangelism to go up to people, go into their places of worship, and tell them that they're wrong. Tell them, hey, you're gonna submit to what I believe. Fact, you did not see Christ, the Hebrew Israelite Messiah, running up into a Roman place of worship. Show me one scripture that says that the Hebrew Israelite Messiah ran into a Roman place of worship. Show me where Apostle Paul ran into Aphrodite's temple. Not a single scripture will validate that. But see, what's happening now, you have so many Christianity. Actually, I'm going to say Christendom because it's the umbrella. It catches all, encapsulates all of them. It brings all of them. Catholicism, the whole Protestant branches, it brings them all up under one lump. They take the posture, they've taught the posture that when they come across a group of people, that person is lost. That person is lost without their poor, warped understanding of what the text actually says. And you see these behaviors. So here you had the natives here. They living good. They're not struggling. They were there for centuries upon centuries before Columbus and those guys got there. So now this doctrine, this letter that they brought there, letting them know that they're going to what? They're claiming their land and telling them that they're lost, but they were the ones that was lost out at sea. The myth of a people waiting in darkness. The people that helped them were not waiting in darkness for a people, these criminals to come and take something that never belonged to them. That's how they divided up Africa, or Akibulan, because the Pope gave property rights to the Portuguese and gave them rights over a territory that never belonged to them. So the myth of a people waiting in darkness for another people to bring them light. The myth of a people without a legitimate God. The myth of the invader and conqueror as being civil by bringing order. So you have to understand this, guys, that there is an ongoing theme that the Negroes are waiting for salvation, right? Saying that we are waiting for salvation, that we are lost. They won't tell you about how our ancestors had thriving communities. They won't tell you in the history books about 30 plus communities, 36 communities around this country that was prospering. They won't tell you about that. They won't tell you about Red Summer, 1919. because of the jealousy, because while all the other communities were struggling because of the depression and all that, but our communities were thriving. And they declared an all-out war to destroy the communities. That's a fact. So there's an ongoing thing that the Negroes are waiting for salvation. Negro slaves are waiting for salvation to be brought to them by the so-called civilized world. So when you see the word civilized, that is always referred to Europeans. And when you see uncivilized, it's always referred to our people around the world. And all the governments that you see that are built off of the institutional race, our people is always at the lowest part of that totem pole. The same behavior. You see the same behaviors in Israel. I'm going to load up some videos about some of the things that you see that's going on in Israel as we know it today, about how our people are being treated, how the Ethiopians honored the law of Aliyah, the law of return. And look at how they were given medicines that kept them from reproducing, subjected to all kinds of things. How Kushi is the N word over there now. So let's deal with this some more. See, this is the stuff that the church, they don't want us to talk about. That's why they want to put labels. That's why they want to demonize us. So that way our brothers and sisters and those that are still under this suppressive system, right? They don't want to go near us. Hey, don't go to those channels. Don't talk to those guys. They want to put labels of moderates, right? I got documents that proves that Judaism and Calvinism is brought apartheid to South Africa. I got historical documents to prove that. But yeah, we got brothers and sisters calling themselves Calvinists. Anyway, let me get back over to here. There is an ongoing thing that Negroes are waiting for salvation to be brought to them by the so-called civilized world. So remember, civilized refers to anyone but us. Uncivilized is us. When you understand the Willie Lynch letter, that term uncivilized, they use that to refer to our people, those that did not want to submit to their oppressive system. The civilized ones label that was put on us were those that embraced slavery, embraced their oppression, embraced their system. All right. So let me deal with a key biblical prophecy real quick, and we'll go further here. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3 and 4. It says this, right? Let no man deceive you by any means. Come on, remnant, the hidden ones. Let no man deceive you by any means. Meaning that you have to do whatever it takes to get away from any of these deceptions. You're going to have to read, study your word. You're going to have to pray. You're going to have to fast. You're going to have to do all these things to make sure that no one deceive you. You have to stop being so dependent on that pastor. You're going to have to stop being dependent on those systems that they have put in place, this hierarchy that they put in place that still pay homage to the Pope or the papacy, which they call father. So let no man deceive you by any means. For that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. See, Apostle Paul gave a stern warning. The falling away, that great deception, that great delusion, right, is for those that have fallen away. The Most High said those that have rejected the truth, there's a great delusion coming to you, but not for those that are embracing this truth. So let no man deceive you by any means. This is the same words, if you really pay attention to the context, that the Hebrew Israelite Messiah said to his disciples in Matthew chapter 24. Before he went into giving them the prophecies of the tribulations, the time of sorrows, which is actually called the time of Odin, he told them, hearken, let no man deceive them. All right, so let's deal with this some more, okay? But it says here, except there come a falling away first, right? So you have to, in order for you to fall away, that means you have to know what you're falling away from. In other words, the truth. All right, this awakening, who opposes and exalting himself above all that is called Alahayim. Others will say Elohim, not getting into all of that, or that is worship, so that he as Yahweh sitteth in the temple of Yahweh, showing himself that he is Yahweh. We see that through the system of the Pope. If you start understanding Judaism, you start understanding the Lubavitch movement and all, you'll start understanding they are in our places of worship, exalting themselves. Oh, we're going to deal with this some more. I know I got sidetracked with all the stuff I had to that we were dealing with, but I'm still going to finish up with part 2 of Santa Claus on Trial. And I know it's going to leave many of you with I'm going to make your mouth drop when I show you some of the additional information. All right. So it's saying that these people, this system is going to come up, right, into our places of worship and exalt themselves, have us worshiping them. Guess what? Freemasonry has us worshiping them. Any one of our brothers and sisters that are in any of these fraternities and sororities come through the Masons. And ultimately, it's to worship these people that have enslaved us. I can prove it, and I can shut down anyone that says that it doesn't. I got the proof. Matter of fact, watch the 2 videos that I did on Freemasonry and the glows. I reveal it right there. That ultimately, these systems are put in place to worship the Caucasian man, the men of Japheth. All right. So let's deal with this some more. All right. So let's deal with now slavery versus indentured servitude. All right. Let's deal with slavery versus indentured servitude. Let's deal with this now. All right. This is the Merriam-Webster Dictionary definition of indentured servitude. A person who signs and is bound by indentures to work for another for a specified time, especially in return for payment of travel expenses, and maintenance. Let me read it again. A person who signs and is bound by indentures to work for another for a specified time, especially in return for payment of travel expenses and maintenance. Right? So an indentured servant, abad or abada, right, is someone who voluntarily enters into an agreement to offer themselves as laborers in exchange for travel expenses. Now, I encourage you guys to watch the presentation that I did on Deuteronomy 28:68 and completely shatters all the poor teachings that many have been trying to concoct to try to deceive and try to say, hey, Deuteronomy 28:68 had nothing to do with the Negroes, the slaves, right? Our people in this country had nothing to do with that. The slave. No, I break all of that down and completely shatter any of the false narratives that are out there about that and give proper clarity with the scriptures showing who that and what that verse truly means. All right. So an indentured servant is someone who voluntarily enters into an agreement to offer themselves as laborers in exchange for travel expenses. So now let's deal with the Irish. Let's deal with the Irish. All right. Let's deal with the Irish. Right. The Irish were slaves too. Right. Some of you guys probably remember this from the Irish presentation that I did. And I meant to put some clips up in here, but I didn't have time, because I did this whole presentation about the Irish are slaves too, debunked it based upon James White, the professor James White, who made all kinds of racist comments about our people. And matter of fact, he should be on that list too. He should be on that list too. He said that the Hebrew Israelites are worse than the KKK. He even said that our people shouldn't have a desire to seek reparations. He said, well, his people were here. He said, oh, the Irish was treated really bad. He said a number of different things. Looking at lesson that I did, Irish were slaves too, and you'll see his hatred, the terms that he used inside one of the segments that he were doing. And I have the video here too to prove it. But go into it and watch it. So let's deal with this popular Facebook post about Irish slaves. And we're going to shut this down, right? This is one of the many posts that you would see that would circulate during election time, right? And I'm going to show you the source of and the origin of this. So Irish Lives Matter too, 1625. The Irish slave trade began when 30,000 Irish prisoners were sold as slaves to the New World. The King James I proclamation of 1625 required Irish political prisoners be sent overseas and sold to English settlers in the West Indies. By the mid 1600s, the Irish were the main slaves sold to Antigua and Montserrat. At that time, 70% of the total population, let me slow down. At that time, 70% of the total population of the Montserrat were Irish slaves. Ireland quickly became the biggest source of human livestock for English merchants. The majority of the early slaves to the New World were actually white. From 1641 to 1652, over 500,000 Irish were killed by the English, and another 300,000 were sold as slaves. So we're going to debunk this stuff, right? Let's deal with the first reference here. All right. It's called, let me go back here. Debunking a Myth. The Irish were were not slaves too. All right. That's the title, is Debunking a Myth. The Irish were not slaves too. All right. This is coming from the New York Times. Right. But let's see what it says here. Debunking a Myth. The Irish were not slaves too. It has shown up on Irish trivia Facebook pages, in Scientific American magazine, and on white nationalist message boards. The little known story of the Irish slaves who built America, who are sometimes said to have been outnumbered and have been treated worse than slaves from America. From Africa. But it's not true. Let me say it again. Let me say that part again. All right. Let me read that part again. Guys, pay attention. Get those likes up. Share the video. Share it. Share the video to many of your brothers and sisters that need to know this information. Just share it. Just put it on your YouTube channel. Put it on your Facebook channel. And I guarantee you, not a single person will be able to debunk the information that I'm sharing with you right here. All right. So again, it says here, the little known story of the Irish slaves who built America, who are sometimes said to have been outnumbered and have been treated worse than slaves from Africa. But it's not true.
What?
It's not true, guys. It's not true. All right. Historians say the idea of Irish slaves is based on a misreading of history. And that is the distortion. It's often politically motivated. Far-right memes have taken offline and are used as racist barbs against African Americans. The Irish were slaves too. The memes often say we got over it. So why can't you? A small group of Irish and American scholars has spent years pushing back on the false history. In 2016, 82 Irish scholars and writers signed an open letter denouncing the Irish slave myth and asking publications to stop mentioning it. Some complied. Notice what it says. Some complied, removing or revising articles that reference the false claims. But the letter's impact was limited. The legal differences between indentured servitude and chattel slavery were profound, according to Matthew Riley, an archaeologist who studies Barbados. Unlike slaves, servants were considered legally human. Their servitude was based on any form of coerced labor can be described as slavery, from ancient Rome to modern day human trafficking. But in colonial America and the Caribbean, the word slavery had a specific legal meaning. Y'all better pay attention to this. That's why when you say you are a Negro, it has a specific meaning in this United States and the properties of the United States. It actually means that you are saying that you are a slave. Man, we got to break out a three-piece on this. We got to toss this doctrine out. That's what it actually means. All right. That's what it actually means. But in colonial America and the Caribbean, the word slavery had a specific legal meaning. Europeans, by definition, were not included in it. Let me say that again. Europeans, by definition, were not included in it. James White, Professor James White. Europeans, by definition, were not included in it. An indenture implies two people have entered into a contract with each other, but slavery is not a contract, says Leslie Harris, a professor of African American history at Northwestern University. It is often about being a prisoner of war. Wait a minute. Y'all better pay attention to this, guys. It is often about being a prisoner of war or being bought or sold bodily as part of a trade. Remember, I share this over and over again. Brothers and sisters, we are prisoners. We are descendants of prisoners of war. Each one of us are POWs, prisoners of war. It was not a transatlantic slave trade. It was a transatlantic world war. But we've been so dumbed down to history. Remember, Middle East, right? That Middle Ages, rather. If you look at the Oxford Dictionary definition of that, it tells you European history. So, in other words, history through the lens of the Europeans. All right. So, again, it is often about being a prisoner of war or being bought or sold bodily as part of a trade. All right. That is a critical distinction. So does this photograph show Irish slaves in the United States? Right. Now, it doesn't. Right. I didn't put the photo here and give more information, but I'm going to use another one here. Right. Another popular photo. And actually, this is going to debunk that photo that you see in that article as well. Does this photo, this is a article title, does this photograph show Irish slaves in the United States? Right? Semi-official bilateral structure was set up in the spring of 1922 and channel Italian workers into the Belgian labor market. The Brussels Labor Exchange Office signed an agreement with the Italian, right? In other words, the Office of Employment, to send masons and other skilled construction workers to Brussels. In the beginning of 1923, the Labor Office of Brussels erroneously obtained a number of unqualified Italian workers. Through this arrangement, the Labor Office contacted the mine companies in I believe this is pronounced Charleroi, who were very eager to receive these Italians. This spontaneously established pattern of recruitment was endorsed by the Italian authorities. While the exact date of circumstances of the photograph remains in dispute, the picture is not of Irish slaves. So that picture that you saw in the first article, as well as you see in this article, guess what? This is not a picture of Irish slaves in the United States, because from a factual standpoint, that form of slavery did not exist in America. Did not exist in America. This is what it says. And because from a contextual standpoint, the photograph does not appear to have been taken in the United States. And this is the photo like the one that you saw in the first article. They want to use these images to try to give this impression that the Irish were in the same boat that our people have been in. All right, let's knock this stuff down, guys. We got to put this truth out there. This is what the conversations we need to be engaging in, especially when we're dealing with our brothers and sisters. This is the conversation that the Christian church do not want to deal with. All right. The World, the Curious Origins of the Irish Slave Myth, Natasha Varner, March 17th, 2017. This is another article, right? It says here, Irish Americans were slaves once too, or so a historically inaccurate and dangerously misleading internet meme would have you believe. The meme comes in many varieties, but the basic formula is this: old photos, paintings, and engravings from all over the world are combined with text suggesting they are historic images of forgotten Irish slaves. The myth underlying the meme holds that the Irish, not Africans, were the first American slaves. It rests on the idea that 17th century American indentured servitude was essentially an extension of the transatlantic slave trade. Popular among racists, let me say this again, popular among who? Racists, white supremacists, neo-Nazis, white nationalists, excuse me, and neo-Confederate groups. So any person that you see inside the church that is saying and pushing out this foolishness, this is telling you what groups that they are part of. So Professor James White, right, who made these racist terms, saying that, hey, his people were slaves here, basically say, hey, they got treated. No, anyway, I'm gonna play the clip, or you go to the clip, you'll see for yourself. It says, guess what? Anyone that's promoting this foolishness, that false history, it says, guess what? That is, those terms are popular among racists, white supremacists, neo-Nazis, white nationalists, neo-Confederate groups, right? So Irish slave troop is often accompanied by statements to the effect of, our ancestors suffered and we got over it. Why can't you? That's what they basically say to our people. We got over it. We were able to overcome. We got over it. So why can't you? That's how many of them teach and believe. And many of our own brothers and sisters start taking on these talking points. Oh, I don't see any problems with where America is right now. My family is doing very well. Guess what? That's not the case across the board. That's not an even slate for each and every one of us. Our people, we're like literally at least 400 years behind the curve in this country. They're ahead of us because what? They built their wealth off of our labor, forced labor through a war that they've created. Anyway, according to Liam Hogan, a librarian and scholar who has tracked the myth reference to these Irish slaves are used to derail conversation about racism and equality. And we see that happening right now, right? If you hear somebody say Black Lives Matter, you hear White Lives Matter. If you hear, for example, somebody, I've gotten a number of comments from the Black Lives Matter message that I gave when I gave the example about the icebreaker about black, calling out nationalities and then about black. So the purpose was showing that when we say black, we can't even tell you what it means. We can't tell you what nationalities line up with this. But when somebody call themselves white, they still know their heritage. They know that they are Italians. They know that they're Portuguese. They know that they're Romanians. They know that they're Hungarians. They know where they are from. But when we use the term black, that's from this institutional race, all we know is that, hey, we from Africa, which is still a generic term. But when they use the term white, they know their heritage. All right. So let's deal with this some more. All right, let's deal with this some more. Okay. The principal aim of this propaganda, which aligns with that of the international far right, is to empty the history of the transatlantic slave trade, which actually is a world war, of its racial element, says Hogan. All right. And so this is one of the images that you see here. This is one of the images that they show here. And we could show images of our children, because these are our kids right here for the most part. Many of them are kids, right? Young kids, and you see some adults here, a few of them. But we got history of our ancestors, our children being used as baits, our children being raped, molested. Got a lot of references on that. But this is what they would use. Excuse me. This is another photo. Excuse me, clearing my throat. that they would use. But let's go to another reference. All right. This still tying into everything we're discussing here. All right. Reuters, Irish slaves, Mem repeats discredited article. Axel Schmidt, June 19th, 2020. Fact check, Irish slaves, Mem repeats discredited article. The Post began by stating the Irish slave trade began when 30,000 Irish prisoners were sold as slaves to the New World. The King James Proclamation of 1625 required Irish political prisoners be sent overseas and sold to English settlers in the West Indies. This is an edited version of the original article, which named the monarch in question as James II. The claim has been debunked by Hogan, who said that there was no evidence for the existence of such a proclamation and pointed out that James II was not born until 1633. The Post also states from 1641 to 1652, over 50,000 Irish were killed by the English and another 300,000 were sold as slaves. Hogan, referring to this Irish diaspora by Andrew Bellingberg, here told Reuters, the total immigration from Ireland to the West Indies for the entire 17th century is estimated to have been around 50,000 people. And the total migration from Ireland to British North America and the West Indies is estimated to have been, and what it's saying here, 165,000 between 1630 and 1775. If this is the case, where on earth is the Mem getting the unequivocal and impossible 300,000 forced deportations from Ireland over a 10-year period? See, this is shutting it down, right? This Post also claims that Irish women and girls were forced to procreate with African slaves. And this is where you get a lot of the hatred, by stating that we're taking their women, we're taking their jobs, we're taking their positions, we're taking their neighborhoods. It says here, the Post also claims that Irish women and girls were forced to procreate with African slaves. All right. Hogan writes that there is no evidence to support this claim and states these historical claims are part racialized and masochistic, right, fantasies, and part of old white supremacy. All right. So, excuse me for fumbling over these words, guys. All right. So the Post also states during the 1650s, over 100,000 Irish children between the ages of 10 and 14 were taken from their parents and sold as slaves in the West Indies, Virginia, New England. There is no evidence to support this figure. In Barbados, where the majority of the Irish indentured servants were sent, the total of white immigrants indentured or free by the early 1870s were estimated at 21,500. The verdict, see what they say? False. Facebook posts purporting to describe the origins of Irish slavery are a rehash of a 2008 article consisting of numerous false claims. And this is the article that they're referring to. I'm not going to go into all of this, but this is the original article that they are referring to. All right. So who was these Irish indentured servants? Who are they? And we get ready to get into what we need to get to. All right. So who are they? Who are they? Right? Let me go back here. Who was these Irish indentured servants? Okay. This is coming from African and African American studies. Descriptive article, early modern history from 1492 to 1789. Economic history, political history, world history, October 19, 2016. This was not an easy task, but these Englishmen did have a number of Irish prisoners serving various sentences. Let me say that again. This was not an easy task, but these Englishmen did have a number of Irish prisoners serving various sentences. They decided on a way for these Irish prisoners to work off their sentences on Barbados sugar plantation. They sent thousands of indentured Irish prisoners to Barbados. Remember the previous article I read, 17,500, right? Primarily, most of them were sent to Barbados. They were criminals, found guilty, working off their debt, right? So what does the Bible say about indentured servitude? And we tying this all in, guys. We tying this all in. Okay. What does the Bible say about? Because many, especially in the conscious community, they want to go into, hey, look, the Bible promotes slavery. Well, truth be told, if we want to deal with indentured servitude, guess what? The Egyptians had indentured servitude. It's a fact. The Babylonians had indentured servitude. And truth be told, the Israelites had indentured servitude. So when you read Exodus 21, chapter 21, and you start off with verse 2 and 3. But when we start understanding this right here, these are laws, these are judgments, right? Let's just say if I owe someone a debt, right? And I don't have the money to pay off. So what will happen is, right, I can go before the judges and come up with a plan to pay off the debt that I owe another person. In many cases, because labor was 90% of the income, the way people earned a living, agriculture. So what will happen is I can come up with a plan and say, I will, let's say either myself, or if I had children, I could say my son, or I could say my daughter will work for pay off this debt for a specified time up to no more than 6 years. At the end of that 6 years, the debt is paid for. And guess what? Whoever is agreed to work off the debt, they are free. So when you read this scripture, this is where you start understanding. This is why you have, unfortunately, a lot of our brothers and sisters take this chapter out of context to try to justify polygamy. What they're doing is taking the laws of indentured servitude and trying to justify polygamy. And we'll go over this again at a later time to debunk a lot of this craziness. So don't be fooled when you hear people from the conscious community talking about trying to manipulate you by saying, look, the Bible has slavery up in here. Well, ask them to explain indentured servitude in Kemet. Tell them to break it down. I guarantee you they'll fumble over that. They'll have that discussion very quickly and brush right over it. See, this is the deception that they use. Oh, that Bible that you have, it promotes slavery. No, the Bible that they were using was called the slave Bible that was hacked up and chopped down. It wasn't this right here. And even then, some of our brothers and sisters were able to see the truth that, hey, they're lying to us. Nat Turner had that slave Bible that he read out of. Guess what? He was still able to see the liberation of our people through that. So don't let these con men tell you and talk you out of your heritage. Don't let them talk you out of your heritage because they don't know history. And the ones that do know history, they are what? Being mischievous. They lying to you. All right. So I want to be clear here, guys. Don't fall into that trap. So let's see what the scripture says here. If thou buy an Hebrew servant, notice what it says. If thou buy an Hebrew servant, right? This is a Hebrew buying what? Another Hebrew. In other words, a Hebrew is paying off his debt. It says, if thou buy an Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall go free. See what it says? Shall go out free for nothing. This is indentured servitude. This is not a caste system of slavery. If thou buy an Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall go free for nothing. If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife shall go out with him. See, they don't want to teach the proper context of the scriptures. Slavery among Hebrews was not intended as a permanent condition, but a voluntary, temporary refuge for people suffering what would otherwise be desperate poverty. So let's deal with the Hebrew definition of servant, ibadah. right? Let's see what it says. And this is coming from the primitive root word that it comes from, ibad, because when you see abada, guess what? That is interchangeable for maid servant and men servant, as far as men and women. And you'll see that in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. But this is the primitive root word, abad. And you'll see this in Genesis chapter 2. It says to work, to serve, till, compel, execute, labor, servants, be servants, becoming servants. So you see this as a responsibility, one of the main responsibilities of Adam. Adam responsibilities that he was commanded by the Most High to do is what? He said to till, right? And also to keep, till, right? Cultivate. That comes from this word ibad. And ibadah comes from this word right here, right? So, and then when you see keep, shamar, right? That means to execute. It also means to be a watchman. Okay. So again, to work, to serve, till, compel, do, execute, labor, servant, be servant, become servant. All right. So cruelty on the part of the servant owner resulted in immediate freedom for the servant. See, the Bible did not teach caste, right? It did not teach the slavery that our ancestors had been subjected to. It was teaching indentured servitude, because guess what? Look at, I'm going to show you some more here. It wasn't teaching chattel slavery. Let's see what it says here. Cruelty on the part of the servant, right? The servant owner resulted in immediate freedom for the servant. Okay. So this is Exodus 21, right? Verse 26 and 27. And if a man smite the eye of his servant, or the eye of his maid, that it perish, he shall let him go free for his eye's sake. And if he smite out his maidservant's ibad, tooth, shan, or his maidservant amath, tooth, he shall let him go free for his tooth's sake. Let me say that again. So if he smite his maidservant tooth, or his maidservant's tooth, he shall let him go free. Now, of course, in this text, you see ibad, when you see manservant, right? And you see amath, right, for maidservant. All right. So again, when you go to Deuteronomy 28:68, you'll see abadad. So, but anyway, let's deal with this. Now, if this is what slavery was built off of, then all our ancestors would have been freed. We wouldn't even been able to they couldn't even kidnap us, because that's against the scriptures. They kidnapped us, right? You couldn't kidnap somebody and make them a slave, that's against scripture. But here you see right here, this is what they'll tell you. The Bible promotes slavery. Chattel slavery is what they're trying to refer to. No, look at the rules here. Let's delve into this a little more. I want to give you a Hebrew, just a key Hebrew word here, a letter here, right? We saw the shan, right? Here it is, shan, teeth, tool, right? Numerical value 300, right? And then you see the pictograph looks like what? Teeth. And when you look at a saw, right? A saw, those rigid edges, right? They look like teeth. So teeth, tool, okay? 300. So this is the testimony of Adaba Kugono, excuse me. This is his testimony. Let's see what happened to him. Let's see what he witnessed, right? Let's see what he witnessed about people getting their teeth knocked out, and they were not let free. This is what he witnessed. This is coming from Slavery in the United States. John Simpkin. I encourage you guys to purchase these books so that way you get a more accurate depiction. These are testimonies of our ancestors. It says here, for eating a piece of sugar cane, some were cruelly lashed or struck over the face to knock their teeth out. Some of the stouter ones, I suppose, often reproved and grown hardened and stupid with many cruel beatings and lashings, or perhaps faint and pressed with hunger and hard labor were often committing trespasses of this kind. And when detected, they met with exemplary punishment. Some told me they had their teeth pulled out to deter others and to prevent them from eating any cane in the future. Right? So this is telling you right here. This is telling you right here that if our ancestors went through far more brutalities here, we supposed to be free based upon if the slavery was built off of the scriptures, then we would not have been subjected to the cruelty. Now let's go further here. I'm show you some more here. The same Shabbat, rest period, and holy days were the same for all. Let me say that again, guys, because these guys don't know scripture. The same Shabbat, in other words, rest period and holy days were the same for everyone. Now, let me show you here, right? This is still within the laws of what? Indentured servitude. 6 days shalt thou do thy work. And on the seventh day, thou shalt rest. In other words, the seventh day of the week, not this first day of the week. That first day of the week is something that was created started with the Greeks trying to do it when you start understanding the time of the Maccabees, right? And then you also see the Romans did that, right? It was, the Shabbat was always the most high day, not this stuff that we see today. But look what the scripture says. 6 days thou shalt do thy work, and on the seventh day thou shalt rest, that thine ox and thy donkeys may rest, and the son of thy handmaid and the stranger may be refreshed. All right. So is the word slavery in the KJV Bible? Let's deal with this. We're knocking down a lot of this crazy stuff here. Knocking down a lot of this crazy stuff. All right. All right. In the KJV, the word slave is listed one time. Let's see here. And this is where you see it listed at. And it says, is Israel a servant, Ibad, or is he a homeborn slave? Right? Madawai, right? Or some would say Madwai, however you want to pronounce it, but Madawai. I'm just dealing with ancient Hebrew here. So is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? This is Jeremiah asking the Most High, because the Most High revealed to him the penalties, the punishment of Israel for getting into idolatry again, cheating on the Most High. So he said that they were going into what? They were going to be taken into captivity to another country, another group of people that was going to what? Make them get into a chattel type slavery. But chattel slavery was not promoted among the Israelites. That's a fact. All right. But anyway, Jeremiah, let's deal with the precepts. Let's go ahead and deal with Jeremiah. Let's read it from the Tanakh, the same text from the Tanakh, right? It says, for my people have done a twofold wrong. They have forsaken me, the fount of living waters, and hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns, which cannot even hold water. Is Israel a bondman? Is he a homeborn slave? Then why is he given over to plunder? And why did the Most High allow Israel to get into captivity, to go into captivity? The very things that our people are embracing today, that Christmas tree, Santa Claus, which is the face of all these suppressive systems, idolatry, the very thing that Jeremiah talks about, Jeremiah chapter 2, atop of every high hill, under every green tree, Israel played the harlot, right? Became a degenerate plant. Then when you get to Jeremiah 7, cookies and drink offerings for the Queen of Heaven. Then when you get to Jeremiah chapter 10, now they bring in this tree that they used to do sexual rituals on these high hills and under every green tree that they created these altars at. Now they're doing these sexual rituals that the priest and the priestess were engaging in. Now they took this same tree, chopped it down, brought it into their homes, and now they're engaging in the same rituals in their household under the tree. That's where you get the presents from. Then in Jeremiah 44, right, this is where you see the women breaking bad with Jeremiah for telling them that they need to stop as a community. And they literally told Jeremiah off. All right. So nevertheless, let's see what the Peshitta say about Jeremiah 2:14. It says, and we're going to read we'll read 13 and 14. For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and they went and dug for themselves broken cisterns that can hold no water. Is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn heir? Why then is he plundered? So as a result of the Israelites' apostasy and wicked idolatrous lifestyle through the centuries, they had suffered terribly, alienated from Yah. Israel no longer had the presence and protection of Yah when they were oppressed and attacked by other nations. Consequently, the Israelites had been enslaved, plundered, and conquered by oppressive nations. So New Year's Day was not a time of celebration for the Negro slave. Let me say that again. New Year's Day was not a time of celebration for our ancestors. I want to make that clear. And I'm going to show you why in our assembly, we come together for watch night. And I'm going to tell you why. Because even when we start understanding Purim or Parayam, however you want to pronounce it, that festival, right, was created because of Israel. The plan was to commit genocide on the Israelites. And that whole scheme was thwarted, right? Thwarted by who? The Most High used Esther. So in our assembly, we use Purim to really honor the women. Because the women, I tell you, brothers and sisters, we got to start learning how to honor the women among our community. But guess what? The Israelites decided what? That they're going to celebrate what had transpired. The Most High didn't have to tell them that. We think that the Most High has to tell us everything to worship. The Most High is not going to say, hey, you know what? You guys having a festival because genocide being knocked down, the attempt to genocide our people been knocked down. We got to stop this crazy stuff. That's what the church would tell you. Hey, well, look, the Feast of Purim, that's not that God didn't tell them to do that. Oh, the Feast of Dedication, God didn't tell them to do that. No, worship is something that you choose to do. That's what the Most High expects from us. Perfect example, the Hebrew Israelite Messiah, when he healed the 10 lepers, he told them to go show themselves to the priest, honoring the law. When you read Leviticus, honoring the law, right? So guess what? Only one returned, and he asked, "Where the others? Weren't they 9 others with you?" He didn't tell the men to come back to see him, but he did have an expectation because he asked, "Where were the others?" So not everything the Most High is just going to just tell you every single detail. We already know he wants to be worshiped. He already know he wants to be acknowledged in everything that we do. See, this is some of the foolishness that you hear people talking, these talking points. Anyway, New Year's Day was not a time of celebration for our ancestors. Let's deal with the testimony of the slave Silas Jackson. Let's deal with his testimony, right? This is what he says. On Christmas Day, Mr. Ashby will call all the slaves together, give them presents, money, after which they spent the days as they liked. On New Year's Day, we all were scared. Let me say that again. On New Year's Day, we all were scared. That was the time for selling, buying, and trading slaves. We did not know who was to go or come. Isn't that fulfilling scriptures? Isn't that fulfilling some of the curses in Deuteronomy 28? They were all scared. Y'all better pay attention to this. Let's see The slave on New Year's Day. Let's get some clarity from it. We letting our own ancestors give us clarity, right? This is coming from Harriet Ann, incidents in the life of a slave girl, written by herself. This is page 11. It says here, the slave's New Year's Day. Dr. Flint owned a fine residence in town, several farms, about 50 slaves, besides hiring a number by the year. Let me read it again. Dr. Flint owned a fine residence in town, several farms, and about 50 slaves, besides hiring a number by the year. Hiring day at the South takes place on January, or the 1st of January, right? On the 2nd, the slaves are expected to go to their new masters. Let me say that again. Hiring day at the South takes place on the 1st of January. On the 2nd, the slaves are expected to go to their new masters on a farm. They work until the corn and cotton are laid. They then have 2 holidays. Some masters give them a good dinner under the trees. This over, they work until Christmas Eve. They work until where? Christmas Eve. And no heavy charges are meant. If no heavy charges are meantime brought against them, they are given 4 or 5 holidays, whichever the master or overseer may think proper. Then comes New Year's Eve. And they gather together their little alls, or more properly speaking, their little nothings, and wait anxiously for the dawning of day. At the appointed hour, the grounds are thronged with men, women, children, waiting like criminals to hear their doom. The slave is sure to know who is the most humane or cruel masters within 40 miles of him. It is easy to find out on that day who clothes and feeds his slaves well, for he is surrounded by a crowd begging, "Please, massa, hire me this year. I will work very hard, massa." Can you guys understand what I'm reading here? Can you understand what was happening to our ancestors? Can you understand? They're begging for the good massa, the good slave owner, and they're still enslaved. To buy them, to hire them for labor for this year, because they did not want to go to that cruel slave owner. "Please, massa, hire me this year. I will work very hard, massa. Please, massa, hire me this year. I will work very hard, massa." The Hebrew definition of massa: a burden, an utterance, chiefly a doom, burden. And see, unfortunately, and I'm not going to keep bringing these guys up, but when they did that video about me, about the pews, and I shared this word massa, saying that many of our ancestors, and what I was saying, that when I first used to hear, like, see some of the read some of the slave writings, because I've always read the slave letters since I was like 17 years old. 16, 17 years old. But when I saw massa, I thought that was just a, broken English. I thought that was a poor English that they were pronouncing. But when we see here, and once I started studying Hebrew, and I come to understand that massa is an actual word that means a burden, an utterance, chiefly a doom, burden. Look at here, carry away. So massa. So it's no coincidence that we see key Hebrew words embedded in our ancestors. There's no coincidence that where you see the gullah, right, which comes from the primitive root word gala, that's our people, that's us. But we teach, when we say the gullah people, we make it seem like they're different people from us. This is what slavery has done to us. This is what the system of man has done for us. This is what the laws of man has done to us. Many of us think that the gullah people are separate people. It's still our people. We all part of the gullah people. So gullah means it means redemption. It also means revelation, right? Gala, look it up. That's the fifth letter of the Hebrew alphabets. In the Israeli language, they say hey. In the ancient is ha, which means behold. Anyway, so masa, a burden, an utterance, chiefly a doom. Okay? So here's another reference, right? Here's another reference. Going back to this reference here. Now, pay attention to this, brothers and sisters. Share this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not. This is why many are fighting against our brothers and sisters, because we're teaching this right here. We're teaching the stuff that should have been taught to our people. This should have been taught, period, to all people, not just our people, because you do have the term you hear is collateral damage, right? Collateral damage, right? When you start understanding the term collateral damage, right? When you look at a lot of these groups, when they're planning for certain things, they already understand that there's going to be damages done to their people, right? When they're planning for war, they already know that they're going to lose soldiers, right? So they understand that, guess what? Certain missions and certain information has to be held at the higher ranks versus the lower ranks, right? They understand that they're going to lose certain people, right? So truth be told, not everyone that's of these other races truly know what I'm sharing with you. Many of them don't know, but the higher ups do. I'm confident of that, right? So that's because they look at the lower ranks as being collateral damage, right? They expose they expendable. So they will make sure that certain people have the overall mission, the full understanding of the mission. So this is why we have to share this with all our brothers and sisters. That's why I have to give kudos. I have to give props to Damon, not Damon, what's his name? Dana Stevens. What's the other group that's out there? Some of the other people that are not part of our community. These guys are actually going out here and putting in work, trying to wake up all those that are lost. All right. So I want to give them props on this too, because not everyone not everyone truly understand this deception. This deception has no boundaries. They, kind of similar to a birthday party. And I'm sure you guys have done this before, had a birthday celebration. And for those that may try to say it's against the law to celebrate your birthday, that's absolutely incorrect. If you understood the third letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which is what? The Gamal, you'll understand when you study that letter, you see Abraham had celebrated a feast for his son Isaac as he was being weaned. All right. Not trying to get into the Near East studies there. But anyway, right. When you truly understand, when we start understanding like the things that that our people had to go through, when we start understanding history, when we start understanding history from all perspectives, then we can accurately put it together. Then we can actually get a bigger picture of what's going on. All right. So again, there are some that is considered to be, collateral damage. Like, hey, you know what? Some people we just go, kind of like a birthday party. That's why I was going to get back to that analogy. I know for sure that I cannot, every time I tried to plan something for my wife, their moms, I knew I could not tell them. Because if I told them, they'll tell her. They'll let the secret out. So I had to tell certain people, but not my wife, when I'm planning a birthday party for or whatever special thing I'm planning for. I had to keep that information from certain people because I knew that they could not hold it. So that's the same thing. There's a lot of people that cannot hold certain information. So they will purposely deceive their own. Target certain people that are within their own community that they would deceive. All right. So let's wrap this up here. Let's go ahead and finish this up here. So the slave mother, New Year's Day, comes laden with peculiar sorrows. She sits on her cold cabin floor, watching the children who may all be torn from her the next morning. Pay attention to this, guys. She sits on her cold cabin floor, watching the children who may all be torn from her the next morning, and often does. She wished that she and they might die before the day dawns. She may be an ignorant creature, degraded by the system that has brutalized her from childhood. But she has a mother's instinct, and she is capable of feeling a mother's agony or mother's agonies. On one of these sale days, I saw a mother lead 7 children to the auction block. She knew that some would be taken from her, but they took all. Let me read that again, guys. Y'all better be thankful, be grateful. That's why it burns me up when I hear how people try to downplay what our ancestors had gone through. I get burnt up at a lot of the teachers, so-called those that call themselves teaching African studies to our people and don't have a clue about what they're teaching. They won't teach about this stuff right here. Christianity won't teach you about this right here. Catholicism won't teach you about this right here. Seminary won't teach you about these things right here. It's going to teach you the Eurocentric perspective of history and their understanding of our heritage. So the slave mother, New Year's Day, let me read this again, comes laden with peculiar sorrows. She sits on her cold cabin floor, and all the parents out here, put yourself in her position. She sits on a cold cabin floor, watching the children who may all be torn from her the next morning, and often does. She wish that she and they might die before the day dawns. She may be an ignorant creature, degraded by the system that has brutalized her from childhood, but she has a mother's instincts and is capable of feeling a mother's agonies. On one of these sale days, I saw a mother lead 7 children to the auction block. She knew that some of them would be taken from her, but they took all. She knew that some of her children was going to be taken from her, but they took every last one of her seeds, still fulfilling Deuteronomy 28. Can you tell me any group of people that have gone through the stuff that our people went through? The children were sold to a slave trader, and their mother was brought by a man in her own town. Before the night, her children were all far away. She begged the trader to tell her where he intended to take them. This he refused to do. How could he? When he knew he would sell them one by one wherever he could command the highest price. So she's begging, making one last effort to try to find out where they're taking her, but they were purposely not tell her where they were taking her children. So because they knew that she would pop up, and they knew that they were going to further make money off of these children by selling them to other people. Man, we got to wake up. Testimony of another slave, Annie L. Burton. Let's see what this says. We're wrapping this up, guys. If a slave man and woman wish to marry, a party would be arranged some Saturday night among the slaves. The marriage ceremony consisted of the pair jumping over a stick. If no children were within a year or so, the wife was sold. Let me go back here. Come on, guys. Y'all better pay attention to what our people went through. If a slave man and woman wished to marry, a party would be arranged some Saturday night among the slaves. The marriage ceremony consisted of the pair jumping over a stick. If no children were within a year or so, the wife was sold. At New Year's, if there was any debt or mortgage on the plantation, the extra slaves were taken to Clayton and sold at the courthouse. In this way, families were separated. Guys, when you start understanding New Year's Eve, right? December 31st, That was a time many of our ancestors got together because they didn't know what was going to happen on January 31st. I mean, January 1st. They didn't know how the master's books they didn't understand that if the master books were in the red, then he was surely going to sell some of our brothers and sisters. So guess what? The watch night was what? Them coming together, right? And trying to do whatever they can to try to show their appreciation, or saying their potentially last farewells, embraces to one another. This is why we do watch night, to remember what our ancestors had to go through. We don't come together like we celebrating and happy that they went through this, but no, understanding that what the Most High even where He has us today, even though we're still dealing with a lot of stuff, man, but our ancestors, look what they had to deal with. All right. So, man, that was the last one right there. That's the last one right there. And I hope, guys, I know I gave a lot of information, and I wanted to just, take the time out to share this with you guys, to really talk about the true meaning of watch night, to give you proper clarity about who's who, about chattel slavery versus indentured servitude. And I appreciate you guys, for tuning in tonight. And, thank you for everyone that tuned in, taking time out of your schedule to really listen to this presentation. Ignore the naysayers. Like the Teo ministry pointed out, start turning a deaf ear to these naysayers, because they're not teaching what we are teaching. They're not teaching what we're teaching. Turn your ears from the naysayers. Turn your ears away from the distractions, because ultimately they want us to talk about other things, but not these things. So this is why I'm pivoting as well. I'm not dealing with this craziness anymore. I'm going to teach to those that really want to be taught. I'm going to continue to teach and press to enlighten our people, and those that are not part of our community, but still have a desire to learn the truth about our history. So I really appreciate everyone for tuning in. Let's see some of the comments as we get ready to wrap up. But again, for all those groups that are opposing our community, look, we're going to have to start giving them the 3-piece like this. We're going to have to toss them out, toss all their doctrine out like this. It's time for us to really, embrace who we are. It's time for us to really embrace sound doctrine, but not this itching ear stuff that we see taking place. All right. So let's see here. Let's see some of the comments as we get ready to wrap up. Divine Righteousness, thank you for explaining this. This helps me make my decision. Really appreciate you for tuning in. I'm glad that this lesson was able to help you. Let's see, Pickaboo. Yes, I agree. Our history must be taught. Absolutely. And see, when you go to Nehemiah chapter 6, if you really want to understand the schemes that we see happening right now, read Nehemiah chapter 6 and you'll see when you get down to verse 5, when they send a 5th letter and the letter is purposely left open. We're going to teach that in this fullness, to bring you up to speed to what social media and many of the tactics of what the people are doing to try to get us to come down from doing the work that the Most High has called us to do, and start dealing with stuff that's going to destroy us. That's what they want us to do. Stop the work, start focusing on things that's going to destroy us, that's going to hinder the rebuilding of our community, the rebuilding of and securing our territories, securing the hearts and minds of our people. I want to say peace and blessings to Elder Brunson. Appreciate you for tuning in, and send me a text, because my phone, I got a new phone and I don't have your number, and I tried to reach out to you and I still have your old information. So shoot me a text message so that way we can get together. All right. Appreciate you. And tell the family I said hi. All right. DeWeet Patton, we need to share this video with all of these black pastors who teach and preach on Sundays. Absolutely. Uh, Tikiyah, hallelujah. That's right, guys. This should increase your prayer on your praise. SL, thank you, Pastor. Didn't know the history of New Year's. I will definitely share. That's right, family. Get those likes up there. See the petition. Make sure if you haven't signed a petition, and just really support the channels of our brothers and sisters that are putting in this work. All right. So love you, family. I want to say peace and blessings. Truth be told, Aman, Pastor. Abba bless you. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate all of you. So with that being said, share the video again. Hit the likes and subscribe to the video if you to the channel. If you are not part of the channel, just hit the subscribe button and hit the notification button so that way you get the notifications whenever we go live. All right. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. And as Moses said to the children of Israel, when they came out of Egypt, and they faced the situation of the water in front of them, and the Egyptians were coming up from behind to destroy them, right? He said to them under the instructions of the Most High, and this is Exodus chapter 14, verse 13 and 14. He said, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of Yahweh. These Egyptians that you see today, these distractions, these stumbling blocks, these hate groups, right? We will never have to see them again, ever again, forevermore. What this means is they will not have power over us again. They will not have influence over our people again. They will not have no authority anymore over our people. The Most High will fight for us, but we have to hold our peace. Can't go back, can't stay here. Keep moving forward. Shalom.